One of the biggest problems as entrepreneurs is that we have so many ideas and we see so much potential in so many different directions. Sometimes it's really difficult to figure out what direction you need to go or to start with. In fact, this is one of the biggest problems I see with our students all the time is they don't understand what their message is or what they want the message to be, or they're passionate between two different businesses and they're not sure what to do. In fact, I've seen this question come up so many times that I figured I'd do a short episode breaking down my process and thinking around decision making when you're stuck between a couple ideas. So enjoy. Hi, I'm Brandon Lucero, and you're about to experience the new way to thrive in business, entrepreneurship, and life by leaning into who you are, what you love, and standing up for what you want to create. Get ready, because this is where we go against the grain, say no to outdated society norms, and we say yes to change in order to create a happier, more fulfilled world. Welcome to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm excited to have you guys here. Today, I am doing an episode on helping you decide what direction to go if you're stuck in between multiple directions. This was actually a comment that we had on a post inside of the New Generation Mastery Facebook group. I don't do this often, but I do it sometimes. Is I asked them what type of episodes they would like to hear. So I asked all of our students, what do you like to hear? And as you know, I'm not the biggest fan of relying on survey results or your audience telling you what they want in order to come up with topics. However, I do think that there is value in that. I don't think there's any absolutes. I don't think we should do all of one thing or not any of something else. There is a little bit of value in asking your audience. Here's the catch. What you want to do when you survey your audience and you ask for survey results and things like that is you want to pay attention to what they say. If you hear the same answer over and over and over again, pay attention to it. And if it's something that fits within your ecosystem, something that you want to talk about, then go ahead and do it. What we want to be careful about is to not let them influence our message and our content and put us out of alignment. And the reason why I bring this up is because this topic was something that multiple people brought up and asked about. And this is really all about being in alignment. And we've all, as entrepreneurs, have a ton of ideas. We always have multiple directions, and sometimes we might have multiple opportunities pop up at a single moment. And I know I've experienced this. I've experienced things that I get passionate about or I get excited about, or there's multiple directions that I want to go, and it's very hard to come up with a decision. And over the years, I've been faced with that a lot of times. Again, like I said, it is something that we have to go through as entrepreneurs because we like to see opportunity all over the place. And we are passionate about a lot of different things as humans. And so how do we decide which direction to go? So what I want to do is break it down into two things that could really move us out of alignment. To me, when we're in between directions, the easiest solution is just which one is more in alignment with where we want to go. And I know that's kind of like a airy-fairy surface level answer. So let's get down to the nitty-gritty in this. And where I've seen this kind of get messed up, where people make the quote unquote wrong decision, although I don't believe there is a wrong decision. There's either a decision that you learn from, or it's one that works out the way you want it to work out. But one of the things that I see make it really difficult for people to make decisions, and I would argue that a lot of times we actually know where we should probably go, but there's some things that get in the way. And I want to talk about the two things that are going to get in the way. So that is going to be making decisions based off of logical and emotional choices. So what a lot of people will do is they will make a decision that is logical, or what makes the most sense, or what they believe is the best decision for them based off their current circumstances. And what I have found, and again, I'm only going to speak from my own experience because I can't tell you guys what to do. I can just teach you from my own lessons and you can make your own decisions. Anytime that I made a decision that I thought was more practical, more logical, made more sense, when it was a decision that was about my life, like something really important to my life, like business, where I live, who I marry, things like that. When I made a more logical decision, it usually didn't end up always working out for me. And one of the reasons why is when we make a logical or analytical decision, it usually stems from thinking and a place that let me put it this way. You can only think from a place that you already know. Meaning when you try to think your way to an answer, the foundation of where your thinking comes from is your past. And when you rely on thinking that comes from your past, you tend to repeat a lot of the circumstances and situations that are going on now. And that isn't always the best decision, especially when it comes to business. So let me give you an example. And a lot of you guys probably are so sick of hearing this story, but in 2017, I made a decision to stop selling YouTube and Facebook courses because I didn't like it. I wasn't lit up by it. A logical decision in that place would have been, you know what, Brandon, you built up a business that does $500,000 a year. You don't really have to work that much. You can start to outsource some of this. You can start to bring on team members. It makes sense just to stay within the realm of what you've already created. And what I didn't realize, and that was a thought that went through my head, but what I didn't realize in that moment was that was all based off of my past, which was, Brandon, it took you 8 years to build a $500,000 a year business. If you give that up, it's going to take you another 3 years to rebuild up to this point, because that was a decision based off of my past. I had never built $1 million business at that point. I couldn't think like $1 million business owner yet. I didn't know what was possible. And so if I went to the logical, practical mind and was thinking my way to what is going to be the best decision, my thinking could only stem from what I've known from my past. However, what we did is within the next 9 months, well, there's a 3-month period of transitional period, but after that 3-month transitional period, the next 9 months, we had built out a business that did $1 million in sales. And I didn't come up with a logical reason as to why I need to go in that direction. I didn't sit down and make a logical, conscious decision of like, okay, I'm pretty well aware that I can do $1 million in 9 months. So we're going to sit down and we're going to do $1 million in 9 months. $1 million in 9 months is way better than this. And No, I didn't even think about the money at all. I thought about what is better for my soul. What is better for my own well-being? Well-being internally, what direction do I want to go in? What direction am I being pulled towards? And I just depended and relied on that. Had I made a logical or thinking-based decision, I may not have landed on that answer, because what I would have done from a logical standpoint is probably done what I think is going to be the safest answer. And in fact, that decision wasn't a safe answer because it put me into $40,000 in debt. So sometimes we have to be very careful with our logical, analytical decision making. And a lot of the times people will do things like pros and cons, or here's all the good and the bad when making a logical decision. And sometimes the best decision for you is the one that looks worst on paper. It is the one with the most potential cons, but it's the way that your soul is telling you to go. It's where you get aligned. It's where your calling is. It's where you find internal peace and internal happiness. It's where you start to move into your purpose in this moment in time. And I believe to my core that when we get aligned and we listen to our purpose and our calling in this moment in time, that the universe just opens up the doors and amazing opportunities start to fall into our lap. And again, this is just based off of my own experience. And I want to be very clear. I'm not telling you to make a decision logically or not logically, analytically or not analytically. You have to make that decision for yourself. So if pros and cons work best for you and you decide not to do a pro and cons list and you make some decision that ruins your business, don't come after me saying, Brandon, you told me to do this. I'm not telling you to do one or the other. What I'm doing is presenting two options to you right now in this podcast episode based off of my own experience, letting you know that some of my best decisions I've ever made, although they moved me into a short-term, temporary situation that was worse than where I was before, they ultimately led me to a path of alignment, a path of purpose, a path that made a lot more money and had a lot more success, and a path that made me a lot happier. And I would tell you, one of the best things you can do is to ask yourself when making that decision, what's more important? Your gut, your intuition, your internal compass will tell you which way to go. And you need to ask yourself, and I'll tell you right now, sometimes that compass will point you into a direction and you may look and you may be like, that is going to be a painful direction. But your intuition, your gut, everything is telling you to go in that direction. You really need to ask yourself, is it better to stay in my current situation with this internal disruption of knowing I don't like this or I'm not fulfilled by this? Is it better to stay in that spot, or is it better to go through some more discomfort that might be a little bit more extreme than what you're in now, but ultimately in the long run, move you into something that you know is your life's calling? And this is why one of the biggest things that you can do to disrupt the different directions that you can go into is always thinking logically and shutting off that internal voice inside of your head or your stomach or wherever it is. Your intuition is going to be your compass to alignment. It's going to be your compass to fulfillment. But sometimes sacrifices are required in order for that to happen. So again, I'm not telling you to stop making logical decisions. Sometimes you will need to make a logical decision. What I'm saying is we may not want to make logical decisions 100% of the time, especially if we're pulled in multiple directions. I also want you to realize if you're stuck in multiple directions in your life, you're not sure where you want to go with your business or other decisions, that saying no to a decision doesn't mean you're saying no to it forever. There's been a lot of times inside of business where I've had multiple offers that I've wanted to do, but instead of offering all of them, we chose one that felt best to me. We built it out, we scaled it, we systemized it. Now I can bring in option number 2. Sometimes multiple directions could be multiple purposes, but it doesn't mean you have to do all of them right now. And choosing one doesn't mean automatically saying no to the others. It might just mean saying not right now. So I don't want you to put all this pressure on yourself of making sure that you make the right decision. One of the things that we tell our NGM students is that whatever business you're in right now, whatever your passion is, whatever your business is right now, may not be the business that you end up with when you go through this program, because our program really strips down to the meat and potatoes, the core of who you are, to determine which direction you need to go, and gives you the personal power to move into that direction. And what we see with a lot of our students is unbelievable growth because they were able to shed things that weren't right for them anymore, including their business and offers and stuff like that. So the number one thing that can make it really difficult sometimes when you're stuck in between multiple decisions and directions is to rely 100% on your logical, analytical thinking. Sometimes that doesn't lead you into the best situation. The next thing we need to be careful of is making emotional decisions. Emotional states is a tough one because things like fear are emotions, worry is an emotion, excitement is emotion. And emotions actually tend to be driven really by our subconscious, meaning we don't actually think about how to feel. We just automatically feel something, which means our subconscious is running and telling us how to feel. So a lot of the times our decisions of things in our life may not be what's best for our internal purpose or our internal freedom. They could be decisions that are literally designed to serve our ego, which may not move us into alignment. They could be decisions based off of past trauma. They could be decisions based off of fears and insecurities, which are all manifesting in the form of some sort of emotion. But if we're not careful to really listen to our internal compass, our intuition, we can be driven by the subconscious. And I'll give you an example of this. If you were shut out by your parents as a kid and you never got your voice heard, and you now are starting to build a business online, and you have this past hurt, this past trauma of never being heard by your parents, and you finally start putting out content and you get some traction with that content, you're being heard by people online, that's going to feel really good. That's going to give you a really good feeling. That's going to give you a really good emotion. Now, even if those things that you're saying aren't aligned with your purpose and where you need to go, they may feel really good, but you're going to eventually hit a point where you resent the things you're talking about, even though you're getting the traction, the engagement. And the reason why you went down that path in the first place was to serve the ego without realizing it, to serve that past hurt, that past trauma. So now you're chasing significance. You're chasing this idea of being heard, which is actually driven by a past trauma or a past experience that you had. And it's serving your ego because it feels good, but it's actually pulling you out of alignment. And one of the hardest things that I've had to do is, number one, recognize when I don't feel like this path that I'm on is serving me anymore. This product, this business is not serving me anymore, and being able to move to a different direction. But in doing that, I had to give up significance. I had to give up a following. I had to give up what I was known for, which all served my ego. I was good at that thing, and I had to get rid of that ego. Okay. So for me personally, my best content that I've ever done is when I've come from an internal desire to serve others and not serve myself. So one of the things that I have done really well and learned over the years is when I'm making a decision on what direction to go, it's really which direction should I go that will make me the happiest when I'm serving others. Not what direction do I go that's going to make me the happiest because I want my ego served. And sometimes people can get that mixed up too, is they can have 3 different directions, and direction A feels really good because they get a lot of praise for it, but that will slowly dwindle. It won't have the effect on you anymore, and you'll be back at square one. Whereas maybe direction C was something that you knew was going to be difficult, to be hard. You may not get praise right away, but you knew internally, your intuition told you, this is what I need to do to serve people. I would be happier doing this in order to serve people. And that was a decision I had to make in 2017, which was, do I continue serving people with YouTube and Facebook ads and get that significance and maintain that significance that I had as an authority in that space? Or do I go in this completely different direction where I may not have significance, but I know deep down in my heart that if I can serve people in that way, I would be a lot happier. And that's the decision that I made. And it led me to where we are now. It led to $1 million in 9 months, to a multi-million-dollar business and beyond. So the 2 things that you have to be careful of when you're in the decision of what direction do I go, I'm in between multiple directions, is 1, maybe limit the amount of logical, analytical thinking you do. I'm not saying stop it. And I'm not saying don't make decisions that way, but at least bring in that intuition compass, that internal compass, combined with analytical thinking if you want, and see what happens. Step number 2 is to look outside of the emotional states you're in. Look outside the fear, look outside the worry, and ask yourself, what direction can I go that if I serve people in that direction would make me the most fulfilled? And that may be a good indicator of what direction to go. So for me, learning how to understand my intuition and be more connected to my intuition has been one of the best things I've ever done. And so for all of you students, you probably know where I'm going with this, but silence was the key to that. And when I say silence, I don't mean meditation, although meditation can be silence. What I mean is turning off that analytical thinking mind. It's when we take a shower and all of a sudden we're not really thinking about anything, and we just get all of these ideas hitting us. Or when we're journaling and we shut the mind off and we're just in our writing and all of a sudden we get all these ideas firing. That's silence. I believe that we are connected to something more, and there's a lot more going on that we are unaware of because we don't have the sense or ability to see it. And I think the more, you can call it your sixth sense or whatever, the more we lean into that, the more in touch or connected you are to that purpose and to alignment. And I think a lot of times we get so caught up in the world with appointments and things to do and kids screaming and bills need to be paid that it actually removes us from the silence and actually makes decision-making become a lot more difficult. And I find when my state is grounded, calm, connected, and my mind is quiet, I actually get so much clearer and clarity on where I need to go. And I credit that to the silence. And the last thing that I'm going to leave you with before we wrap up this episode is to remember that whatever you do land on, whatever decision that you make, it's not forever and it's not permanent. If you're in between 3 decisions and you choose A, and A may not have been the best decision for you, you're going to learn real quick that it was not the best decision for you. And you can cross A off, and now you just have to decide between B and C. So either way, you're going to learn and gain something. It just matters. The biggest question is, how long are you going to procrastinate and wait? Because either way, you're going to have to move forward, because whatever you're feeling right now, the confusion, the internal turmoil, all of that stuff, it's not going to go away. And I can tell you right now, the best thing I've ever done in my life is to figure out what direction, listen to the silence, but also figure out, how do I want to serve people and which direction is going to allow me to do that? And it's more focused on what I'm going to be fulfilled by. When I am of service, which way is going to fulfill me the most? So with that said, we'll go ahead and wrap it up here. Again, just to reiterate, if you're in between decisions, just remember it's not permanent. You can always fix whatever. And we always don't want to make emotional and logical decisions. Sometimes sitting in silence can provide the clarity that we need. And if you're in between a decision and you know it's right, but it doesn't make practical sense, basing something on practicality may not be the best decision-making formula. Not saying it's an absolute and always the truth, but it's been true for me more than it's not. So with that said, if you enjoyed this episode, let us know. Leave us a review on iTunes and tag us inside iTunes, or what is it? Instagram. Yeah. At IamBrandonLucero.com. And I'll see you guys on another episode. Take care. Hey guys, thank you so much for checking out another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, go below, hit the subscribe button, and make sure you click on that bell icon and get notified every time we drop a new episode. Now, if you're looking for the show notes, we have them linked underneath this video, as well as our social media handles and some links to free training and offers that we drop from time to time to help you guys even further. So go check those out if you're interested. And thank you so much for tuning in to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast.